Hey everybody, last set of video notes before the break, the holidays. So this is the last one we're going to be doing, and it's going to be over something that we've touched on a little bit during like spiral reviews so far, and it's called simple interest. So you have seen this on your spiral reviews throughout the year so far, but now we're actually going to have a day to do this, and whether it's Thursday or Friday for you, it's just going to be a one-day thing. And let's just get right into it. Let's start talking about what simple interest is. Well, the reason they call it simple interest is because the real way to find out interest is more difficult. So this is just a somewhat easy way to figure out interest. Now, when we talk about interest, we're talking about money that you would have to pay back that's extra to like a bank if you took a loan, or if you put money into a bank, like a savings account, the interest would be the extra money that you would earn. And so there's a formula for it, and as you see, it's right here. And it stands for interest equals PRT. And it says here you must memorize this, so please do so. So we need to know what these three things stand for. So the P stands for principal. No, we're not talking about Mr. Duran. This is one of those words that has a double meaning. Principal stands for the money. Okay, so that's the money. And then times, which means you're multiplying, times the rate, which is the percent that you're either earning if you put money in a bank, or that the bank is charging you, or whoever is charging you for taking out a loan or having a credit card or whatever the interest might be. And then your times, or you're multiplying that times the time. And the important thing about this is that you always remember it's in years. That's very, very important. Okay, so again, in this formula, the I is the interest. Again, money you're either going to pay back extra or money that you're going to earn when you put money in an account. The P is the principal. And I know we're writing these things down, but we figure if we write them down a couple times, maybe they'll stick in our heads a little more. The rate is the annual interest. Annual means per year, and it's a rate. Okay? The important part about that is that it's expressed as a decimal. We have to change the percents when we do this to a decimal. If we don't, we'll get an answer that's way too big, 100 times too big, and we don't want to do that. And the last one, the T again, is for time, and that is always written in years, even though you might not take a loan out for a year or put money in a bank for a year. You might only take out a 6-month loan, or you might only put money in a bank for 6 months. Okay, so we have to be very careful with that also. So the time and the rate are going to be a little bit tricky sometimes. Okay, so let's go back and start doing some problems. Well, first, we're going to practice converting the interest rate percent to a decimal by shifting the decimal 2 places to the left, which is a common thing. You do this a lot. Anytime you change a percent to a decimal, it's always 2 spots to the left. So the first one is done for you. 5% becomes 0.05, and that means all they did was this decimal right here after the 5. They moved it 2 times to the left, and they created that 0 right there. Okay? So next one, right below that, 2%. Well, we're just going to take that decimal that even though it's not there, we know it's there. We move it twice to the left, and so this is 0.02. 4.5%. Again, 2 spots to the left, 0.045. 20%. There's your decimal, 1, 2. 0.2 would work, or 0.20. Either one would be okay. This 0 in the end you don't really need. And if someone ever wants to charge you 20% for a loan, you need to run as fast as you can away from that person, because that is not even close to being a good percent for a loan. That would be if you had really, really bad credit. So be very careful if this ever happens to you someday. 10%, okay, we're going to change that. 1, 2, 0.1 or 0.10, either one would work. 5.5, we're going to move it twice to the left, so 0.055. 6.5%, 1, 2, 0.065. And the last one, 12.5%. Well, first, we need to write this as 12.5%, and then we're moving it twice to the left, so we get 0.125. So there's all those answers for that. So anytime we're working with simple interest, you do have to make sure that you're changing percents to decimals correctly by moving the decimal twice to the left.
That was easy.
Well, yeah, that should be pretty easy. So that's the first thing that's going to be a little bit tricky in these kind of questions. Okay, the next thing that's going to be tricky is the time. Again, when we do the time, we need to divide the number of months they give us, if it's given in months, by 12. Okay, if it just says 1 year, then the t in our formula, the t is just going to be 1. If it's 2 years, it's just going to be 2. If it's 2.5 years, 2.5. But sometimes they give us the length of time for the loan, or the whatever we're doing with this money, in months, so we have to do that. So 6 months, you should know, is half a year. Okay, 24 months, well, if I divide that by 12, that's 2 years. 9 months, if I divide that by 12, and I simplify that, you should kind of know that one, it's 3/4 or 0.75. 3 months is 3 out of 12, which is a fourth, so that's 0.25 of a year. 30 months, well, when I divide that by 12, I get 2 and 6/12, which is 2.5 years. And the last one, 15 months, well, that's going to be 1 year with 3 months over. So 3 out of 12 is 1/4, so this equals 1 1/4. So we're looking at 1.25 years. So even though that might seem a little tricky, dividing by 12 when they give you months should not be too difficult. And again, that is something you have to do when you change time in this formula. It has to be in years. If you do, like for example, if you saw this one where it says 30 months and you multiplied by 30, you'd be way off. Okay, that would be like doing 30 years, which is not what you'd be doing if it said months. Okay, so anytime you change months to years, divide by 12.
That was easy.
We'll hope so. Okay, next, let's actually do some problems here. Okay, so we're going to write the interest formula for each problem. Find the simple interest for a loan of $500. Again, that's the principal, the money part of it. The 6.5% is our R, or our rates, and they make it pretty easy for us in this one by giving us a years, which is an exact number, so 3 years. So I write down my formula, PRT. I substitute in those numbers. 500 is the principal. The rate is 6.5%, but remember what we just did. We have to move the decimal backwards twice. So we're going to do times 0.065. Okay? And then the years on that one is 3. So times 3 for the number of years. When I multiply this out, and again, this is a big multiplying problem. If I want to do these two, if I want to do 500 times 3 first to make it easier, that's okay. But when I multiply these all three together, I would get $97.50. Now, so you understand what that means. That is the extra amount that you would have to pay for this loan. Okay, here's how it works. You go into the bank, they write you a check for $500. They tell you it's an interest rate of 6.5%. They tell you tell them, well, I'll pay it back over 3 years. So the $97.50 is the extra amount that you pay. So if you were asked to find the total amount you'd had to pay back, you'd have to add the $500 for the loan plus the $97.50, and that way you would know, oh, okay, I'm paying back $597.50. And you're actually doing that on a monthly basis. So 3 years is 36 months. So if you wanted to actually figure out, you could divide this by 36. And this is just, again, this is another way they could ask the question. You'd be paying about $16.60 a month for that loan that you took out. Now, that may not seem like a lot, but I mean, there's not a whole lot of people that would take out a $500 loan for 3 years. That's, that's not a really feasible thing to do, which means it's a little weird. Okay. All right. So let's look at example 4. Which of the following can be used to find the simple interest for a $1,000 loan at 4.5% for 6 months? Okay. So again, the first thing we want to do is write down our formula. It's just like any other formula. If we write it down, it makes it easier to follow. We want to find the interest. So that means we're looking for the I here. And although we're not going to do the actual problem, but they want us to figure out how we would do it. So the 1,000 is the money part. times 4.5%, which I have to write correctly. I have to change it to a decimal. So 1, 2 becomes 0.045. Then the last part of it, the time, is in years. Don't forget that, because it's a 6-month loan. Well, 6 months is half a year, so we're multiplying that last one times 0.5. So where do we have this written out? 1,000 times 0.45. See, this is 45%, and that would be crazy loan. You wouldn't take out a loan for that much. So they didn't write the decimal correctly on that one. They messed up changing the percent to the decimal. So we're going to look down here to this one, and this one matches exactly what we wrote right here, and this is the answer. This one, there's 2 mistakes. That's not how you do 4.5%, and that is 6 years, not 6 months. This one, not only did they mess up the years part of it, they also messed that up. That's 45%, so those are both wrong, okay? Now, number 5, a little bit tricky, because this one actually wants you to find the interest rate. Okay, so this one you're looking for R, which is in that formula. So you're going to write out the formula just like before. You're going to write in the numbers they gave you. They gave you the loan is 700. That's the principal. The rate is what you don't know, so we're just going to put times R. They tell us the time is 4 years. Okay, and this last bit of information is the simple interest. They gave us the I, the 266 is the interest that you paid on this loan. Okay, so we got to just kind of work through this formula the right way. So we're going to just say, all right, the $266 is equal to the 700 I borrowed for 4 years, which is 2,800, times the rates. And at this point, this should look like any other one-step equation problem that you had. For example, if it said 28 equals 4R. Well, when you just divide both sides by 4 to get rid of that 4, same thing. You're going to divide, and this is going to be a big number, I know that, both of these by 2,800. Okay? So that cancels out that. And now we have to do a little math. 266 divided by 2,800. Add my zeros correctly. I got 0 here because 2,800 does not go into 2660. And then I have to probably do times 9 would be my guess. And if you look, this is a point where you might actually look at the answers and say, all right, let's look at some of these answers here, because these are, okay, 95% on a loan, really? That's almost the whole loan. We're not going to have that. 4% could be, 9.5% could be, so it's definitely probably one of these. When I do the math, I find out 2,800 times 9 is 25,200, which I know it's got to be 0.09, which as a percent, changing that to a decimal, is going to be about 9%. I'm sorry, changing the decimal to a percent is about 9%. Okay, so I'm assuming that's going to be my answer, and it will be. Okay? Alright, so the you try question, please try that. Have it done by Thursday or Friday, whichever every day you're doing this. Remember your formula, I equals PRT. And this one, they give you the loan amount, they give you the length of the loan, they give you the principal or the amount you're borrowing, and they give you the rate of 11%. Okay, and it wants to know how much will she pay for the car, including the interest. So do that problem, okay? Alright, we'll see y'all. Have a good day.